Well, it's great that we can all be here. I'm looking forward to this conversation. Glad you guys are all available. Rob, I don't know
Thank
which
you.
state you're in. You were in space and now you're at the bridge. I mean,
Now I'm in New Orleans at the Crescent City Connection. I see we
ah.
have 4 attendees here.
Welcome. We'll wait for
rolling.
some people to gather and then we'll be starting pretty soon. So hopefully you are having a good day. There we go.
That is a funky background you got going on there, Jay. Your head's going, woo!
Watch this.
If he moves too far, you're going to see Jesus. So I don't.
Oh, Jesus didn't come in yet. He'll come. Maybe he'll come. He'll appear.
I told him he looks like the old Max Headroom stuff from like 1990, you know. But so that's all good. Well, hey, let's talk a little bit about what we're doing today. So this is the second of the webinars that the Southern District is putting on. This is kind of the brainchild of Jason Sheeler, our mission exec, and Rob Olmstead, our all-around technical expert guru guy. And we want to be able to put out these webinars that talk about topics that are meaningful and necessary in the running of our congregations and in helping us to improve in the things that we're doing. And one of the things that have come out, a blessing that has come out of this this time of COVID quarantine, is that a lot of congregations that never were online, never had a video presence, now are putting their services online, are venturing into the area of technology. And so we want to do this webinar to help you to understand how to do it maybe a little bit better, to come up with some resources and some ideas. Today I was meeting with a man who wants to go into the ministry, and he was talking about his grown children, and that his grown children don't go to church, that his mom, who is a former Mormon, doesn't go to church, but that they have been tuning into his congregation's online services, and that they are being fed spiritually, they're growing, they are asking questions, they are moving closer and closer to faith in Jesus Christ, because they have an online presence. And I've heard these stories over and over and over again. And even if you're just doing a very simple Facebook Live type of a broadcast of your worship service, you are reaching people with the gospel of Jesus Christ that you would not normally reach. People that wouldn't even darken the door of a church are coming in online and seeing what's happening, and they are hearing the word. The word is going where it will, and it's doing its work. And so this is really important, and we want to encourage you from the district side that those of you that are doing online services, that you continue to do so even after church fully opens and we are all able to gather again together for live worship, but that you continue to do your online presence, because you are reaching people that you may never know about, and that you are reaching people who may end up coming to your congregation, that you can see them coming to faith and baptism and discipleship in your local congregation. So this online presence is really important. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand you over to Jason, and we're going to start this process of talking about how to use technology to be online and be able to reach people with the gospel of Jesus Christ. Can we pray before we do that? Is that okay, Jason?
Yes, sir.
Let's pray. Pray with me in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Father, we want to be useful servants. We want to share your gospel with the whole world. And Lord, you've opened up this opportunity for us to be able to use technology, almost like Luther using the printing press in a revolutionary way to share the gospel message. You are allowing us to use a video and online presence to share that very same gospel that never changes. So Lord, help us. open our hearts and minds, allow us to use the technology to be online and to be able to share the gospel of Jesus Christ with those who may not ever come to our churches. And so we just ask you, oh God, that you would be with the presenters, that you would be with the hearers, and that we would find ways to be useful in your kingdom through this sort of thing. So Lord, in your mercy, hear our prayer. Thank you.
Thank you, President Johnson, and really appreciate that. I think you hit a point of why we're doing this webinar and the importance to have this discussion. As we talk about it and, about doing online stuff, many of us were kind of dragged into it. It wasn't a change that I know guys I talked to that did not want to do it. This was not something on their radar to do, not something they planned to do. And, I think you highlighted it well. I mean, there is just, because of this change, we were forced in it to just really almost like survive, to keep it for our members, to keep it for those people we knew. And I think what's been happening is the surprise in it. And so we were forced in doing it. And but there's now a little surprise in this that we're reaching new people, and we have new people that have started to tune in probably regularly. And so it raises the question, how do you use this gift, and how do you keep using this gift at this venue as you continue? And so what I have on this panel here is Rob Olmstead, and Rob Olmstead does the tech for NCIS New Orleans, and he's also a president of the congregation, chairman of the Southern District. No, not chairman. What's your title at the Southern District? Aren't you involved?
I'm just a board member.
Just a board. You're not really just a board
member.
But grateful. And then Dave Morby, and Dave has been also involved in doing with online church and providing that, and so has been doing that. So I think what I want to underline and capture again is just that while there's been a lot of discussion about reopening the church and getting people back, the challenge or the danger of that is there's challenges of opening. We've talked about that last time. But I think one of the cautions we're saying is, if you heard from President Johnson, what he was saying in that story is, let's not forget the new people that God has brought through online. And as churches are finding as they're reopening, they're not all coming back. Many are not coming back because they're not feeling safe at this time. And I think many are not going to come back because they prefer this venue for worship. It fits into their life more. You can argue that, but right now we're just trying to meet people where they're at and help them and grow them. And as President Eric illustrated, as those things start to happen, they're going to keep seeking more. I mean, that's what God does. And that's what Holy Spirit draws us in and connects us. So we've had to adapt. And so I don't know about you, but, adapting, you just got thrown into it, and you're, maybe in a foreign area, and it can get kind of challenging and maybe intimidating. So I thought we'd have a venue here to ask questions, kind of go into it. And so let's just talk a little bit and then look at best practices of it. So Rob, you've been looking at churches, you've been helping your church adapt. I think, I remember, right, COVID pulled you guys into this forum, this venue. So how was that transition, and what was the surprises with it?
I think, yeah, we weren't doing it before, so we didn't really have experience or exposure with it. And kind of getting started, one of the things that we were trying to determine how and what it would look like. What does our online presence look like? Is it just the fact of putting up a camera and kind of doing all of the familiar things that everybody is used to seeing, in worship, and for lack of a better word, kind of replicating that for people? Or are we kind of creating something maybe a little different that might be, um, maybe differently engaging, because we're going to be engaging in a different way to folks who are watching online. So that was kind of our first challenge, is to kind of determine what kind of presence we wanted to have online, and then how we would put that together, whether it would be live streaming or whether we would be preparing something and then uploading it and having it available at a certain time. So
And can you stop right there? I think that's a real significant thing that you said. It seems a little minor maybe, but are you replicating, meaning, and I would flesh out replicating, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when I listen to you say that, you're basically saying giving somebody a seat to just see the service like they're there, or they understand who we are.
right.
But not necessarily like acting like they have a seat in a pew instead of a seat behind a screen. Because that experience behind a screen, even though it's looking at the same thing, hearing the same thing, is different. Is that what we're saying here?
Yeah, I mean, and the way we've kind of termed it is are we engaging the other person that's going to be looking at this as a spectator or as a participant? You know,
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
and because and a lot of that also can be, again, determined by what that what that looks like. If you're just setting a camera up and you just have a nice wide shot of your service and things like that, like this, there's nothing wrong with any of these things. It's just, when we were exploring that, how do we want to engage this online audience? Because it's not just for our membership that we were all scattered and couldn't actually fellowship together in person. It wasn't just for them. It was also for all of those other people, like President Johnson was talking about, that might have never stepped foot in your church before, but that need to hear the message of Jesus too. So how do we kind of engage that, to have some of the familiarity of for the members, but at the same time make it engaging for everybody, so that they actually feel a part of it and not just watching a service happen from start to finish, and where you can actually get something out of it, and you feel like you're a part of it.
Yeah, and there's two. I think you guys come with two different angles of engagement, with some real expertise of best practices. I'm sorry, I shook that. That's not a good practice. Two different perspectives with engagement. I mean, Rob, I mean, you really come with a visual engagement of best practices, and how that's going to be that experience that helps keep them engaged as you go through a service from being online. So you're not just a spectator, which, I mean, that's really great language to think about. And I know, well, Dave, you take that in consideration, but you're the communicator, and you're communicating engagement. So you want to talk to us a little bit, Dave? Just talk about communicating engagement through the service with online and people in the room, and some of the things that you do for that.
Yeah, so that's a great question. And mentally, it is a mental shift, as far as, like, if you're the lead communicator or the preacher or worship leader, because you have to think through language that allows you to connect with the person on the other side of the screen. And so for us, I know one of the things that we did was we were very intentional about having engagement points through the entire service. What would allow us to engage people, to pause for a moment, and questions are always great. And so when we plan our service, and we just naturally transition this back into live also, so that it just flows, from asking everybody who's sitting in front of us to everybody who's on screen. Like, I mean, from point one to, hey, we want to welcome everyone who's watching us online today. Tell us where you're from, where you're watching us from, who's with you, and is there anything we can pray for you today? So there's just automatically from the get-go, we want to acknowledge people who are engaging with us and watching with us. And we want to give them an opportunity to give feedback. And then throughout the entire service, so we like to have 6 to 8 intentional engagement points, 3 to 4 through the entire service. And then I intentionally plan 3 to 4 in the sermon itself, where I'm asking folks who are watching online, give a thumbs up, give an amen. What do you think about this? Like this week, we had an image on the screen that people had in front of them who were in person, but then also you could see it on the screen if you were watching. And it was one of those images where like you look at and you can see like 7 or 8 different things, because we were talking about perspective. And I just asked folks online, hey, type in what you see. And then it just gave people an opportunity, because it gave people an opportunity to be engaged, because I think we all realize that if you're not intentional about engagement, it is so easy to check out when you're at home, because there's a million more distractions at home than there are even in a live service. And so it's just easy to check out. It's easy to get disengaged when you're watching a screen. And so you got to be intentional about grabbing people back in, and throughout the entire service, grabbing them back in, asking them questions, seeing, just giving them check-in points, if you will. And so that's something we've been very intentional about doing through the entire process. And then learning how to do it both live with people in the pews and also still online. And so making sure that there's some engagement there.
Yeah, I will tell you, it sometimes feels awkward because we intentionally turn to the camera,
yeah,
and say something to the online audience. And when you do that, you feel like you just ignored the audience here, and yet everybody kind of understands what's going on. I found it interesting. We did not put a number to our engagement, how many times we're doing that. And so I'm thinking through my head though, we're right around 6 every time. I don't know, Rob, I know Rob's going to talk about some more engagement, but has anybody seen from other congregations? Is that a good number to shoot for? Is there what we could do too much of it, just to kind of give a guideline for people to like, hey, let me implement this and see how that works. Anybody have a number with that or a thought, just from you guys' perspective?
At least from our perspective, especially with either live streaming or videos online, those kinds of things, people sometimes look at the big number. Well, 200 people looked at our views, or we had 300 people online, or 1,000 people, or whatever that number is, and there's value in that number. But the other engagement point that we really also focus on, when we look at, whether it's the stream, we look at how long are people watching? How long are people being engaged in what we're presenting? And we found, at least with the methods that we're using, and we kind of look at the number, we have about a 56% watch time engagement out of a 30-minute piece that we're actually producing to put online. The average person is going to watch for at least 15 minutes. So, that's really good. I mean, in today's society where 5 minutes is probably the max for some, could be less for others. That's why I think it was important that you do have those engagement points, especially if you're doing something live, because it keeps it fresh. It keeps people engaged. It keeps people watching, and for us, since we're doing something that's pre-recorded, we make sure the package isn't too big. So, it's maybe not a full hour or a full 45 minutes, maybe it is a little bit smaller and shorter and more compact, to where that no matter when someone tunes in, if they're going to watch for, 10 or 15 minutes, they're going to get Jesus out of it. They're going to get something out of it and be engaged in it.
Yeah, that's a whole nother level of strategy there. And that's what you're saying by going back to your purpose. What are you trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish? Because you guys are editing down an online experience that's a lot more focused, and for that, others are still in that, like us. We're still doing the whole experience. I'm cheating a little bit. I'm doing small watch parties during, as we're doing our live feed stuff, but I'm on my phone and I'll watch party it to my Facebook page, and I'll do just like a song, and then I'll turn it off and I'll do a sermon, and then turn it off and just do smaller sections. It's just, it's crude, but we realize that all these other people are checking in when it's just a small section on my Facebook, and we're running the whole service on the church Facebook.
Right. I also, at least for us, one of the things that we've done too is, reaching people, especially during the time apart, that weren't either tech savvy or don't have, they might have internet, but they might be of a particular, they just don't have it. So we had a lot of people that would call them and put them on speakerphone and actually watch the service together with another family group, so say, called grandma or called someone, that just might have an issue with some online presence in and of itself, but at the same time, someone's calling and engaging them, and they're having some sort of experience with each other as they're listening to the message that would be presented at the same time. So, and it kind of made that another engagement point for even our own members with some of our other members, which was kind of neat.
I think one of the things, Rob, just kind of piggyback on that, I think when you're doing your online stuff too, is be willing to create some space for people to engage online with one another too. And I think that's kind of important too, because I know like we had folks who really like that. It was like somebody would comment, and then the person that they would normally sit next to in church was watching online with them, and so they could comment, right? And so and I think there's also allowing some space for some natural social interaction online to take place at the same time that the worship is going on, and not just kind of rushing through things, if you will. There's something about that also, the ability to do that.
I think that's a great point. That's part of engagement, but also recognizing that's a community there that we're trying to bring together. And so just like as people gather in a lobby, or the narthex, and they talk and, all that before service, we've started our services with pre-service earlier. So we're on before, like right at 8 o'clock or 10 o'clock, and we're having music, but we added a host. So we have a host online, someone who's there to help engage the conversation. They will maybe repeat certain points, ask questions in the feeds, but they welcome everybody and create hellos as people are logging on, and try to connect with people as we're preparing for a service, just like you would if they were there in the building. And so we're actually starting our services just a couple minutes late, just allow that kind of connecting, as you were saying there. We brought up something that's, I know that's about getting all the understanding of the numbers. And I know that you have to kind of work through Facebook. I don't know how you do it for YouTube or our website, but well, the website I do, I go to the web developer and ask them. But Facebook, can you guys give us just a simple, or why don't we give a simple version of, like, how do I get those numbers to? Because I see the view numbers, but how do you get the engagement numbers? You guys able to do that?
Usually on. Not as familiar with Facebook Live, but with YouTube for sure. When you can go to your video list, or you can go to your recording or your live stream after it's over, and there's a sub menu that will allow you to choose analytics. So if you click on analytics, that will then give you all of that data for that particular video, or it would give you that data over a period of time as well. So, and it'll tell you how many views, and what's the average watch time, and all of that stuff we talked about. And part of the thing too is some of the understanding of some of the nomenclature is that some people use the word there's impressions, there's views, and then there's of course watch time. And impressions are, I don't really look at that number, because that number can be wildly inflated, because an impression is just if somebody skimmed over something or clicked on something and it was just there, but never did actually click the button to watch anything. It's still an impression. It's like you're your visual was in front of them for a minute. Whereas if it's a view, they actually had to click the button to actually hit start or to watch your stream or whatever. And then of course, the average watch time is how long did someone actually stay on and watch your program. So those are kind of the three things. There's a lot more data than that, but every content delivery system, whether it's Facebook or Vimeo or YouTube or any of those, they usually have within account settings a place to go for analytics to get that data.
Yeah, so Facebook Live works similarly, very similar to that. That's our primary that we use is Facebook Live. It can get a little confusing because I think impressions in YouTube is the same as views in Facebook, and so that can get a little confusing. And so when you click on the engagement button there on a live video, if you're kind of the moderator for your Facebook page, it'll take you to the analytics page. And then I think what I have found helpful in the Facebook analytics for Facebook Live are looking at 3-second views, 1-minute views, and then peak views. And so that's the number that we kind of look at is like how many people kind of midway through the service were still tracking with us. And that gives you a really good that gives you a little bit of a better understanding of like who's engaged with you, and then if you're really trying to kind of go a little bit deeper, what we've started to do is on Mondays, what we'll do is we'll go back through the feed. We'll look at who liked the video, who said something. So we're like creating an attendance batch based on likes and engagements and people who we connected with and followed up as part of the chat stream. And so that gives us a little bit better picture of going, who's actually watching and engaging with the material, with the Sunday worship. And then we actually started this week. We did a follow-up poll on Facebook to go, okay, who watched us online, either at 9 or 11, who joined us in person, and then who watched on a replay, so like they weren't there at 9/11, but they came back later on in the day or they came back later on in the week and they watched it because we were trying to figure out how many people are watching at a later time at a later date. And so it's really been helpful to be able to track all that and just kind of get a better picture of who's engaged and who's not engaged, and especially people who are not, quote, members of the church, so that we can do intentional follow-up through that process.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I know one church just found out that Sunday evening became the most popular worship time when they started to do the evaluation of everything, because people were just, watching it then. So then they did a premiere, which is another level of just kind of rebroadcasting your service, but you got to record it, and they just made a premiere at that time and started to focus like another worship time, official worship time online. And they just replayed what they did, but having that official time helped people set their clock for it. So these are some really good conversations, and we could go a lot further, but I feel like I want to just get into some technical stuff because it is kind of overwhelming. There's a lot of options. So Rob, I just want to just talk about some best practice basics with our camera, views. You taught us a lot, and I have some more questions, but I want to let you just kind of share, and then I'll start throwing some questions that we started to think about too.
So let's see, because I did sometimes for me it's let's see, it's a little bit easier to show than that, but okay. So here's some kind of just, again, this is, everybody's going to use something different. Everybody's going to have something different, to an iPhone, to a production camera, to something in between. So it's kind of the first thing, just really kind of evaluate what you have. I mean, because a lot of people were just kind of, when they're thrown into this, you just kind of, okay, what can we use? And, oh, I have an iPad, let's do that, and hit Facebook Live and then roll with it and do those kinds of things. Now that, you kind of maybe evaluate now, making this a more permanent type thing, let's evaluate what you have and what equipment are out there. Again, there is so much out there, but that you can use and buy depending on the budget. But even if you still wanted to continue to use something like an iPad or an iPhone even, there's some key things that you could get to kind of help. And one of the big things is, even though I'm a kind of video guy and also an audio guy, the second point is audio, audio, audio. Um, that is one of the biggest things, watching streams and watching stuff, is, if it's fine. You can set the camera up and shoot and but if your audio is just kind of what's in the room, it could sound echoey. It could sound, have a wild variety of different things that can become unclear for the listener. So you really want to make sure that you have the cleanest audio possible. And there are a lot of devices that you can get. I mean, if most churches have existing sound systems already, there's methodologies to take that audio and bring it into your iPhone, iPad, or camera, or those things. Again, there's many different ways to do it, but and can help with that. But you can do some research with that to do that.
Well, let me just underline that with you,
Yeah,
Rob.
sure.
When you told us that, and so we've been real mindful of our audio, and we realized, because we're going through the mixer, that the audio in the room sounds different than the audio that we're broadcasting. So just if you haven't done that, as you're evaluating your equipment, go ahead and evaluate and look at a service online. Watch yourselves, listen to it, listen to it on TV, a computer, a phone, and see how it looks, and listen how it sounds. Because we kind of learned a lot through that, and that was you just saying, hey, make sure your audio is clear. And we're still struggling with that on the beach thing, but inside we've learned a lot. So thank you.
And well, I appreciate that. And also too, it doesn't, with kind of getting started, it's okay if for some reason you have an older system and you can't actually get the audio from maybe your mixing board to your whatever. Don't feel bad about maybe having somebody wearing two microphones. Have a separate audio system that you can attach, that is clear and clean for the presentation part. You don't have to necessarily hear everything. You want to have a little control, because you don't want to catch all of the coughs and all of that stuff that might be happening in between. But at the same time, for that clarity, don't feel like you have to stick with what you have already. It's okay to have a separate system for your streaming, which is advantageous sometimes.
And what you said, kind of to tag with that, what you were saying earlier about all the different equipment that's out there, and you and I were talking about this and agreed on this, and it's kind of our approach. Let's be functional, and then worry about being fancy. And so we're going to be functional, and one of the first places you're looking to be functional with is definitely your audio. If that's not functional, I don't care how good your video is, they're just going to stop because they can't hear. So
right.
That's just really important to see. Yes. Okay,
exactly. So, and the only other thing is kind of going back to what we were talking about before, between being spectator and participant. I know that, logistics within a particular setting might not always be advantageous for, because the person probably running the stream is, at the back of the room or in some other location within the sanctuary, or, and you don't have the ability to, sometimes cameras, you don't have the ability to zoom, those kinds of things. But one of the things is, especially for me, is kind of framing. So this is a really crude example, and I have no clue who these folks are. I just kind of use it as example for framing type. Again, differences between being a spectator and participant, where the wider shots and the wider things are fine, are good, but and that gives some context of the space. But at the same time, especially, we found that maybe for the message part or the sermon or those things, you kind of want to be a little bit more engaging, like the shot kind of to the right here, where you are closer, and it engages more eye contact with the people online. And that's important too. That's kind of that was a really hard thing, I think, for our pastor is to kind of especially being kind of thrust into it, is to kind of have that consistent eye contact with the camera, or at least glancing. You need to almost treat the camera as they were there in the room, because looking directly, I mean, if I was talking to you and I was over here, that's way less engaging. I'm not really talking to you. I might be talking to somebody that's standing in front of me. But if I'm looking right at the camera and talking to you directly, that's quite important, especially for messaging and engaging, those kinds of things.
So you just walked right into one of my questions, and I want to just clarify, because we had this debate, and we were fortunate to have two cameras now, and so we've been like, what angle is best for something? And so if I hear you say, let's just say I'm that preacher over there by the pulpit you had up there,
Right.
and he's turned away from the pulpit, he's kind of walking in a direction. So the camera, instead of like being just looking front into the church and seeing him on the side, is actually in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
So do you always want to try to keep the camera in front of the person? In other words, you don't want side shots necessarily.
No, profiles are not usually the best thing. Again, this kind of gets into, evaluating what you have and what you can and can't do. But yeah, usually, especially in our case, when I do this professionally, whether it's for conferences or other things, you know, usually when we have multiple cameras and we kind of cut between them, we always watch the eye line of the person presenting, because I'm usually cutting to the camera that person is looking at. So the engagement is always going toward the camera, and that person is looking at the camera. And then if they turn away, then I'll take another camera shot that might be in the direction of that person is looking. So really trying to keep that eye focused, where the person that you're filming is always focused toward the camera, and you're not doing this kind of weird profile kind of view.
Yeah, so we talked about that, and when we can't move the camera around, and also to limit the movement, because we just don't have all those skills, and it's difficult, on a tripod or whatever we're doing it with. We talked about how we as the liturgist or worship leader, where we stand and where we should be standing, or the space that we should be moving in, so we can try to keep that engagement visually with the camera and the congregation. So if you have one camera, then you want to try to put it in a place, but you also got to talk to the pastor. Pastor has to be mindful of where he's walking and how he's turning, because when he turns away from that, then he's turned away from that audience and how long it is. So we worked on our spacing even as we walk around, to try to do that.
Yeah, no.
So go ahead, show us what, I know you had some other things we wanted to share.
Oh,
about.
no, the last thing I had was, and I think there was a question to regarding to this, about third party kind of
Yes. Mhm.
streaming networks, because a lot of people use Facebook Live and or YouTube, of those kinds of things. The nice thing is that you're not really limited. You can do both. There are some services that will allow you to stream to your Facebook page and to stream to YouTube and stream to a lot of these other delivery mechanisms, and putting that on online, and then you can use the embed code from those to actually put it on your website as well. So you have that in multiple places so that people can actually go to. For us, we utilize Vimeo at our church. But that kind of goes multiple places at one time, and people are able to access that. Kind of one of the cool things about Vimeo, it'll actually tell you where you came from. So did you click on the link on an email that we sent out to the congregation or to whatever, or did you click on our Facebook link to get to this video, or did you click on, or did you do a search in Google and find it and do it that way? So it's kind of interesting how you can find that out. But do you need any kind of special equipment, or third-party software to kind of help stream? I think that was one of the other questions about doing it. If you use something like Facebook Live, of course, you're using your Facebook interface to do that. There are third-party softwares that you could use that will interface with Facebook. One of the things I use professionally is called Wirecast. It's a little on the expensive side, just because it will stream to just about anything, and I use it that way. But it's about $500, and that might be a little bit. There's also OBS. Online broadcasting system. It's the freeware version that will let you stream to YouTube, Facebook, and a bunch of other different entities. You could use that, and that's kind of free. The trick with all of that is getting the video into a computer, so then you can stream that out, because then it's added hardware and added stuff there. There's also some hardware devices that you could buy that, as long as you can get the video into that device, and it's kind of like a easy one button stream, and it'll stream to all of those networks. I also pointed someone the other day to Vimeo. Again, is another pay service that you'd have to do, but Vimeo has started now with their streams streaming to multiple parties. So from your Vimeo live stream, you can stream to YouTube and Facebook and all of these other things at the same time while you're streaming. You could actually even, as this Zoom conference is right now, if you're utilizing Zoom for something, this webinar is actually being streamed on YouTube currently at the same time. So you could use even Zoom to stream to Facebook and to others, and those kinds of things. Pastor David, I don't know what you're using. I mean, you're using Facebook Live, but I don't know if you're using any other methodology to kind of get your video where you need to get it.
Yeah. So our primary one is Facebook Live, because that's our predominant audience. And then what we also do on YouTube, our second phase is on YouTube and then to our website. So there's 3 different. And then we go out and trim out the sermons after the whole service is done, and then repost those for people to be able to view that content.
Yeah, that's what we're doing. We found that we have people who are just against Facebook, totally against it. So we definitely had to go to YouTube, and then we had to add that then we moved eventually to our website too. So we have all 3. And the other thing I didn't realize, that you have to get, if you get so many different 100 likes on your YouTube channel, then it becomes your channel. You do not have some alphabet soup kind of link. If you want to have, for people to connect to, you can just actually have your name of your church there. So we were able to get 100 likes. So now you just go to Hope in the Beach Church, and it's there for our channel. So that helps it come up a lot more regular. So inviting people, part of engagement, to like your Facebook page so they get those automatic notifications, like the YouTube page. And the other thing is, I've talked to a couple of churches, some are mailing the bulletins out to those people that are home. We email them out, and we make them available to be downloaded. And so if you could not have the ability to project lyrics, or your liturgy up there simultaneously with the picture. I know that Dave, you do it. What system do you guys use for your liturgy going through the video?
So we do OBS, and then we do a side by side.
And
so it's the single shot of whoever's either singing or leading worship or preaching, and then over here is right now it's kind of low tech. We kind of went with the mindset, we're going to do it well but simple. So we went kind of low tech on, versus trying to do the running lyrics and all that other stuff. It's basically the hard copy of the bulletin that we print out is right next to the screen, and it's worked really nice. I mean, it's just it's flowed really nice. And so what we do is we have taken the philosophy of let's connect as many ways as we can. So we mail out stuff, we email stuff, we put it on the website, we put a link on the Facebook page, we have it up on the screen at the same time, and you have it printed if you walk in the door. So we've gone for the philosophy of we want to connect with you in every capacity that we can, and so that the more that you feel connected to, the more you feel engaged with your church and in this community. So that's kind of the philosophy we went with, and it's worked really well. So like through the week, you're gonna get an email with all the links for everything you need. You're gonna get a text message on where to just click the button and go watch service. Okay, you'll get a reminder Sunday morning. You'll get a reminder on Facebook on Sunday morning. And then it'll get pushed out to you. So we just kind of really believe in the whole, and then we tell people, like, one of the first things we'll do when we go online is, hey, everybody hit the share button right now. And so it's kind of like, you hit the share button. This is your simple way of inviting someone to come to church with you right now from your own living room. And so it's just that multiple connectedness, engagement.
That's really good. I never thought about putting that. I think we put the link up there, but on Facebook, I'm not sure we do. I have to double check that. It's great. That's a lot of communicating you're doing to help keep the group engaged and reminded and come back again. So it's not taking that gift or that person for granted that they're just going to return. That's a lot of reaching out and connecting.
You hit it there, Jay. Is that I think our job is to do everything we can to help people be intentionally engaged. I think our job as church leaders is to put it out there as best we can and to make it as easy and accessible for people so that they can be engaged with us. And what I have found is a high level of appreciation from people who recognize how much effort and work goes into all of that. And they respond they respond well to it. Like, people respond well when they realize, man, you guys are going to a lot of effort to make sure that we can be a part of what's going on. And then in return, that gratitude and appreciation is shown in a lot of other ways. And I think at least for me, that's really important.
So Dave, you said, just want to verify, because I want to clarify what you said, because I know that you have a text software that you send texts out just to your members or guests, whatever ones, all the numbers you have in your database. And then, so did you say you can set up a reminder to go out through Facebook? Because it automatically does something. Ours automatically, I think, does something. Are you sending something else besides that?
No, not something else. Just the simple, when you click on that get reminders from your page or your group, and then those will show up on your feed. Yeah.
Yeah, we're leading to another conversation, really, of, the question we have is, like, how do you use Facebook during the week? And how are you using it to help people remember, help capture people who missed it, and how to help people move to next week. So, we're doing stuff all through the week, of that strategy. And so that's getting into a whole nother level of discussion. But I think it's really great to hear how many, just again, to think about all the different steps you're doing and need to do to try to engage that audience and keep them engaged and say that you want them. I think that's really awesome. I'm not seeing any questions. How do you move Facebook Live session to a YouTube? That just came in for a question. Jerome, you want to maybe expand on that a little bit? Are you talking about semi-broadcasting at the same time? Or are you talking about, like, hey, I had something I recorded on Facebook and I want to grab it, download it, and move it over to YouTube? So that's two ways you can do it. You can either live feed, simultaneous broadcast. And Rob, you said there's Vimeo is what we use, and you said there's other ones. OS does the same thing. So there's a
OBS
couple
does the same thing, right? Yeah, exactly. And
Restream will do that too.
Yep.
Restream. And some of them have a higher cost than others, and you're going to have to evaluate that packaging. If you want to ask us what we use and why we use it, we're using a Proclaim with Vimeo, and it's embedding our graphics and stuff like that, and it works with our cameras. So before that, we were just with an old camera or a phone or an iPad, one of the two.
Right. And there are features, and I know there was one question about, doing the side-by-side things in OBS and all of that kind of stuff. And other softwares do that too. That it's within the setups and settings. It's that you can have two sources. So one source would be your camera. The second source would be, like you said, your graphics or whatever else, and then you can actually place them side by side and have them up simultaneously at the same time. So the software will do things like that. And sometimes they make it real easy where it's kind of like a drag and drop or a click of a button, to do those kinds of things. So
I will say this, when you do the side by side, just make your fonts really big.
yes.
Yeah.
No, I was gonna say that goes to like the other thing is PowerPoint 101. Don't feel like you have to fit everything onto one slide.
Yeah.
It just and it's okay to have many slides. We kind of do the same thing. By fitting too much, you're killing your focus, and plus people can't see it. It gets too small, especially when you're streaming, because when you're streaming on your phone or iPad, and depending on your connection, the video might not be as clear or clean, so eyes start to look like T's, and just you can get, so big is better, and don't feel bad that you have to use 10 slides to do something that you would normally want to fit on one slide. So
absolutely.
Good point. Yeah, I think that's part of it is, if you heard me say it here, I've been looking at other churches. I've been looking at other people to try to figure out what looks good. What am I missing? I don't know about you. I look at my own. I don't always like to watch my own self, but I go, okay, that didn't seem very helpful, or this. You just gotta. I think just encourage you. Just gotta jump into it. We had to adapt it, and now it's time to kind of think like how to be more intentional about it. It may be, it's embracing that there's a camera in a weird space in your worship area, in your sanctuary. And we're all gonna have to wrestle with where we have to put those. But if you have a phone or iPad and you're shooting from the very back, that's not very engaging. Or you're shooting at a real weird angle that's way looking up. That's hard to do. And so you might have to adjust some of that culture there to just understand why you're doing this, because you have a lot of people who are still connecting, and they're connecting online on that live broadcast and afterwards. And so I encourage you just to experiment. We do that. We'll say, hey, during the week, we're running a test, and we'll just try stuff. We're telling people it's a test and it's live and it's out there, and they're watching us make all our mistakes or try to learn stuff. And we just say that's what we're doing. And actually we found out people get excited about that, because they're like, oh, wow, you're really committed to see what you're doing and try to make it better for us. We really appreciate it. So I know people felt weird about testing things, why we had to be live. And sometimes that's the only way you're going to be able to get it and understand it. And so invite some people into it. Use Rob or Dave or myself. If you want to navigate the more technical side, the other guys, if you want to talk about any kind of content stuff, that's, we're all here to kind of be that source for you. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Well, one thing that I would just throw out for folks to be thinking about also is your especially when you start going back to a live service that's also going to be streamed online at the same time. One of the things that we did that has worked really, really well is, we end our live stream kind of before communion. And so we do the preaching, we'll do announcements, and then I'll give everybody at home a special blessing And then I'll tell everybody inside the sanctuary, hey, let's wish them all well. Tell them, have a great week. We love them. We miss seeing them. Hope they're doing well. And then we'll end our live stream. And then we'll continue with communion as part of the service that's in person. Just simply because I know if I was watching from home, I would drop off at that point. Like I just would drop off because that's going to be a really low engagement type. I'm just watching people walk back and forth, and I think it's better, at least from my perspective, to go ahead and end your live stream there in a very intentional way, and then continue the rest of the service with celebrating communion. So, just wanted to throw that out there.
Yep. And like you said, don't feel bad in engaging your online audience, even though you have people in front of you in the room either. Treat them like they are there. I think that's really nice that like they are people that you're reaching out to in the room, and it's good not to just, again, it changes the dynamic from being a spectator of something to a participant.
And I think this is a tipping point. Once you start investing in this and saying, how am I really using this? Who's using it? How do we leverage this for discipleship and reaching new people and outreach? It's going to hit a tipping point where then you're going to start looking at your website, and you're going to have to start asking the question, how's my website discipling? How's my website connecting people to Jesus, connecting to his church? Is there updated, right information? Because if you capture new people through Facebook, YouTube, then a logical next step is going to be starting to go to your websites. And I know ours during COVID, we've been trying to redo it for a year, and then COVID hit, and we said, you know what? This is a great time to spend some real time on a website. We're still not done all the updates, but it's almost there. And but we had out-of-date information, out-of-date pictures. And we also had an old look that was not very user-friendly to the way people scroll now and go through things. It wasn't simple enough. And so we had as Rob said, we had a crowded PowerPoint slide on our website. And so I encourage you, I know it's not in front of you all the time, but go look at it and get fresh eyes to it. And I think our old one's still up there. It was supposed to get down. We're trying to get the old sermons off of it. But if you want to see what was okay 10 years ago and what's different now, you can go to ours at hopeonthebeach.org and see the old one. And you go to hopeonthebeach.com, which is still a work in progress, but it's about 90% there. And you'll see a drastic difference of how that information and some of the same information is being presented. So that kind of gives you an idea of how people are reading, looking, what holds attention, engagement, and differences today. It's not perfect, and it's not the greatest model, but it's a good step upgrade for us. It might be helpful for you. It's just as we close out here, Rob, is there anything else that we should be mindful of? I mean, you really, I know the one thing we kind of touched on was the cost range, a variety of different equipment, and maybe people still have questions on that. Like what would be a beginner, like what's a good basic thing, or maybe, maybe it's just too many options to answer that easily.
Yeah, I mean, it's very specific. I mean, it can be specific to a specific circumstance, which is why, like I said, I no problem helping anybody, especially with their individual things. I think as long as you have the main components. I mean, of course, you need a camera of some sort. You need a good audio of some sort, and how that interconnects. So you have those key components, because without good audio and video, you're not really going to be streaming much of anything. So those are the kind of the basics. The only other thing is, and I kind of just briefly saw it in the chat, was about copyright stuff. Our situation is a little different. We do a lot of pre-recorded material and put it together later. So there are a lot of services out there for content, especially for music and for some other video stuff that we utilize in our own, like Worship House Media or some other media companies where you actually buy the rights to it, and you buy and they're fairly inexpensive for those kinds of things. The larger issue of live streaming a service and those kinds of things and utilizing that's pretty pretty widely accepted that if you're streaming something live, you can, that's pretty well accepted.
We put our license number up there because
Yeah.
Facebook will sometimes hit us, or YouTube will hit us for copyright infringement, and then they hold it for a little bit, and then they hold it. It's usually not during the live stream, but it's afterwards, and then they hold it, and then they re-release it.
Yeah.
And you'll go through that a couple times, and then they, if you put your license in there somewhere, then they stop doing it. And so good. Dave, anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I would just say, like, if you're not doing live streaming and you're doing premiering, you're doing all prepackaged stuff and then shooting it out. The biggest thing that I've saw that was really impressed upon me by a different group was don't do premieres if you don't have anybody online from either your staff or key volunteers engaged in the premiere while it's happening. Don't just like, oh, we're going to put it up at 11 and I'm going off, and doing my own thing. And there's nobody engaging with the people who are online with you during that 11 o'clock premiere or 7 o'clock premiere, or, whatever it may be. It's just basically you've switched from engaging people just to content dump. And so that would just be my biggest encouragement, is just, if you're going to premiere, and then premiere works great, right? Or doing a replay, right? But have somebody, even if it's just one person, have somebody who is engaging people, on behalf of the church, with everybody who's getting online with you at that live moment, and I think that's huge. I think it's really, really important, because otherwise you lose some of the authenticity of what you're doing. Now it's just something you watch. It's not something you actually engage in.
Yeah, and I just want to close this out with the word of encouragement. Just be yourself. Be who you are. I know I've watched other services and I go, wow, that just looks so great, or whatever. It comes off really well. And it can be like discouraging when you're sitting there with like kind of the, mom pocket, I call it, and patchworking it together. And you're going, man, it's just rough. And this wasn't, and you know what? People are more concerned about who you are and what you're saying. And they come because they start having a connection with you and or your church family, and they're not, and it's not to be, it's easy, I think, to feel a little competitive in that a little bit, or because you're conscious. I just encourage you, just be who you are. Just be you. And as you are you, like one guy said, I was just surprised even people I've lost touch with were starting to watch our services because they wanted to kind of reconnect with me, and they had an opportunity to do that. And it just shows that people just want to be with that person who they connect with, who's their shepherd. And as you bring the word, as you lead worship, I just want to encourage you, just be you. And these are just things that we're talking about. One, that can help reach other people, keep other people engaged, and just not let this the technical part get in the way of the message. Really, that's what we're trying to say. That have that great audio, because you got to hear. That faith comes by hearing, and people want to be able to see, and so we just want to not have things get in the way and make it as simple and easy as possible for people. And as Dave was just all the different ways of trying to invite. It just reminds that Jesus telling that parable of sending everybody out to invite to come to the great feast, and all the invitations are out. So just keep doing that. And that's, let God take care of it. So thank you very much for joining. We are going to have another one this Thursday. We're doing 2 this week. And so Thursday, we're going to get together and just take a look at the financial situation and stewardship in the church. As everybody's kind of gone through COVID, it's had a whole bunch of people over the spectrum, but there's a lot of people in the spectrum where this has made a big drop, a big dent, a big challenge in some financials. And so we have a panel put together to discuss those financial challenges, discuss where the market is and where they see the market going. What is all the people saying? And we'll have a 15-minute presentation, an overview. And I heard the overview in a meeting I was with business people, and it was encouraging and insightful, and helped me think through some stuff, looked at some things differently. And then we'll also talk about what are some things we have as a church body available through Church Extension Fund or other resources that are out there if you haven't gotten in touch with those. And then there's we'll do some practical things, best practices for stewardship. We'll lean into that together. So I hope you can join us Thursday at 1 o'clock. If not, it will be recorded and will be posted, and you can catch it later. Thanks for joining us. You get any questions, feel free to connect with us, either through the email, calling us, and we'll help you out. We'll catch you the right person. Obviously, we got a lot of expertise in our district, and we're all learning this together. And we just encourage you to use it. Use these different resources that we have available to help you and your ministry, because you're there. You're the one who knows what's best. We're here to just come alongside and help you. So thank you very much. Really appreciate it. President Johnson, do you have any closing things that you would like to say as we bookend this time?
Yeah, thanks. This has been a great seminar, and like Jason said, you don't have to be flashy. The gospel is the power of God and the salvation. And so be online, have a presence, be speaking law and gospel, confession, absolution, forgiveness, and restoration. And the Holy Spirit does his work through the word. So I just want to encourage everybody who's going to see this, don't be intimidated. If you're not online, you can get online easily. And it is a powerful way that the gospel can go forward. And, we keep this in our prayers. So thank you guys for doing this today. And I look forward to the financial presentation as well on Thursday.
Thanks again for joining us. God bless. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.